Well, hello everybody. This is my Walther RM8 Varmint PCP air rifle, a lovely gun, which has sprung a leak. I picked it up the other day to do some plinking in the back garden during lockdown to find that it had no pressure in it at all. And when I put a little bit of pressure in, sure enough, I could hear a leak coming from the vent hole in the regulator. So what I'm going to do now is strip this lot down and replace all the O-rings in that bottle, fill valve and regulator assembly. I'm on a handheld camera at the moment, so I'll just talk you through this bit and then put the camera on a fixed stand to do the strip down. The tools you're going to need are certainly an adjustable spanner, some lubricant, Vaseline, petroleum jelly. You're going to need some thread lock. You're going to need a 3.5mm punch and a 3.5mm drill, but you're not going to be drilling anything. I'll explain that later. You're going to need an O-ring pick, a little pick to pick the old O-rings out, a good set of hex keys, Allen keys, a flathead screwdriver, a couple of cotton buds, and a couple of cocktail sticks will come in handy too. So the first thing you've got to do is, I'm not going to take you through taking the action out of the stock. There's just two bolts there, a bolt there and a bolt there. Undo those and just draw the stock off, and we can take that to one side and put it to one side. The next thing you need to do is take the barrel off, and to get the barrel off, all you've got to do is take your punch, okay, and just punch that little peg out there. All right, you don't need to punch it all the way out. If you just punch it so that it's come out by 15mm, about 15mm, you can pull the barrel out. The barrel will just pull out. So I'll do that in a minute. I'll get this all stripped down, and then we'll have a static camera to do the actual strip down. So I'll just switch this off now and be back with you in one moment. Well, here we are now. I've got the action, taken the barrel off, as you can see, and I've got just the action connected to the buddy bottle, the inlet fill port and the regulator, and we're going to strip these down now to get at all the O-rings that need replacing. So the first thing we need to do is just take this plastic barrel support off. So take your hex keys. There's just a hex key in there. It's not a problem. Simply undo that. And that will just lift away, exposing the assembly we actually want to get at. Okay, there we go. That can lift away now. And just take that to one side. So there we are. Now, the first thing we've got to do is make absolutely stone cold certain there is no air pressure in this system whatsoever. Now, you know, compressed air is dangerous. It can be extremely dangerous at high pressure. So if you don't feel confident or competent to do this, then please don't proceed. But you must make absolutely sure, as you can see here, the gauge is reading 0. Now, you know, if you've got a leak, then it probably will be empty, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this. But just to make absolutely sure, even with the gauge showing 0, as it must be before you do this, there is here a vent port. So just take the screwdriver, undo that a little bit. If there's any pressure in there at all, it'll come out. If there is any pressure, it'll probably pop the O-ring. The O-ring, it'll simply go like that, and that'll pop out. But that will empty the system, and it is absolutely essential before you unscrew this buddy bottle that there is no pressure in there whatsoever. So having done that, just grab the buddy bottle and off it comes. There's an O-ring on the buddy bottle there, look, and we'll be replacing that. There we are. So now the next thing to do is to take the fill port assembly off the regulator. Now the fill port assembly has got two blind hex bolts, one there and one there. So take your hex key, pop it down the hole in the fill port and unscrew these. Just one turn, a few turns at a time. You can't take them all out because they're blind. Okay, just undo them. I'm applying a little bit of pressure with my other hand. It takes an age this to take these off, but there's no quick and easy way to do it. You just got to wind away. Put a little bit of pressure on it with your other hand, so that as the hex bolts come out, you know where you are with it, and eventually they'll just drop out. There we go, nearly there. I can feel it coming now. As I say, you can only do this a few turns at a time each. That's one out, and the other one's just nearly there. Okay, there we are. So now we've got the fill port assembly off, okay, and the two little bolts that held it in. There's an O-ring on there we're going to replace. There's an O-ring in the vent port, two O-rings in fact in there, and there's one on the gauge as well. We're going to replace all those O-rings. Okay, I'm not actually going to take you through replacing the O-rings. It's simply a case of picking an O-ring off with your little O-ring pick and popping the other one on. So there's no point in me showing you that. It's the disassembly that's the important thing. And once you've disassembled, of course, assembly, having replaced the O-rings, is simply the reverse procedure. So that you can set that now to one side and replace all the O-rings on there at your leisure. So here we now have the business end. Here's the pressure regulator. Right, to get this off, clamp the action here in a vise, probably with some wood or some cloth supports. Put your adjustable spanner on the regulator and unscrew it. It won't be that tight. Okay, there's the regulator off, and I can put the action now to one side. Okay, first things first. There are two little Allen keys on here, little grub screws, I'm sorry, two little grub screws. There's one there in that collar and another one on that collar. Don't touch them, leave them exactly where they are. They are clamping that collar in place, and you don't want that collar to move because it affects the pressure regulation. If you want to do anything, just make sure those grub screws are pinched up, that they haven't come loose. But otherwise, leave them well alone. Right, where should we start? Let's start at this end. This is the business end. When you pull the trigger on the gun, the hammer comes down, hits that. That goes in against a spring in the regulator and releases air pressure. And the regulator puts it down to about 90 bar, I think, into the barrel, fires the pellet. So the first thing we've got to do is get this end off. Now then, this is tight, and also it has thread lock on it. So what you're going to need to do, there is a special tool you can get to take this off. It costs about £25. But if you don't want to do that, what you need is a 3.5mm drill. Pop that in there, and as it happens, the 3.5mm punch that you punched the barrel pin out with, pop that in the other one so that you've got that arrangement. Now you can put your adjustable spanner on there and crank, and you can crack that seal, okay, and take this end off. There's spring pressure in there, so keep pressure on it, otherwise it'll go flying across the room. Okay, I'm unscrewing this now, having cracked the seal. There it comes. There we are. There's the spring. Okay. There's the spring guide. There. And here, that's the little piston. And in this part, we have a little brass washer on top and an O-ring. And that O-ring needs replacing. This brass collar goes only on one way. It has a recess for the O-ring. So on reassembly, make sure the recess sits over the O-ring. So there we are. So that's that. That O-ring's got to be replaced. Right, let's have a look at the other end. Clamp the regulator in a vise. Put your adjustable spanner on the collar and they'll come apart fairly easily. It shouldn't be too tight. Just unscrew it. There are no O-rings at all in that part. That can just be put to one side until reassembly. No O-rings to replace in there at all. In here is the business end. You'll probably need to take a little cocktail stick now, push it up the other end and just push, and a little piston in there will pop out, and it has got 8 washers on it, 8 domed washers. Just try and get my fingers around this. There we are, look. That's the regulator barrel. You can just pop that to one side now, leave that alone. This piston has got those 8 washers on it. They're domed washers and they're put together in a very specific order. Can you see? There's 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. So you've got to put them back in that order. So the concave parts are facing each other in pairs. Okay? You can see that there. So 2 domed, 2 domed, 2 domed, 2 domed. Put the concave parts opposite each other and put them on in pairs. 2 O-rings in this to replace, that O-ring on the end. And in my gun, yeah, that's why it's leaking. There's an O-ring, or there should be an O-ring there, but it's completely disappeared. It's disintegrated, goodness knows where it is, but that is why my gun is leaking, and leaking with a vengeance. The O-ring that should be on the end of that piston shaft is just deceased. It is no more. So there we are. That's what I'm going to have to do, is replace that O-ring there. Okay, and that's it. That's the whole disassembly procedure. When you've replaced all the O-rings, it is simply a case of reversing the procedure. Fairly straightforward, really. I don't think I need to take you any more. When you're putting this end of the thing back together, you'll need to apply a little bit of pressure when the spring goes in. It's a little bit awkward when you're putting this back together with the spring guide. It tends to want to go to one side all the time. So if we put that like that with the spring guide, when you come to put this back together, it tends to wobble about all over the place. But just be strong, be forceful, and it will go back together, I assure you. Okay, so that's it really. There we go. That is a Walther RM8 regulator and fill valve assembly, fully stripped down. There's the fill valve. There's the buddy bottle. Whoops, sorry. O-rings to be replaced, O-rings to be replaced, O-rings to be replaced. Put the washers back in the right order. Job done. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.